I heard his footsteps on the stairs. They were too slow, too deliberate. I had never noticed how heavy his steps were until now. My heart raced as I sat still, staring at the blank wall in front of me. The quiet of the house made the sound of his movements echo through the stillness. Every creak of the floorboard sent a jolt through my body, but I couldn't move. Not now. I knew something was off. He had been distant for weeks. Not in a way that was easily noticeable, but it was there, like a small crack in the perfect facade of our life. The dinners that were once filled with laughter and light-hearted conversations were now replaced with silence. His touch had grown colder, and the nights we spent in the same bed felt like mere proximity rather than connection. I tried to ignore it. I told myself it was just stress from work, or maybe the routine of our long marriage was getting to him. But deep down, I knew it wasn't just that. Something had changed. And then, today, I saw the message. I didn't mean to look at his phone, but my curiosity got the best of me. I told myself I was just checking on his schedule, but when I unlocked it, I found something I never expected to see. Her name. Lisa. My best friend. The woman I trusted more than anyone else. The woman who was supposed to be there for me, just like I had been there for her. I wish I could say I didn't feel the blood rush to my head when I saw the messages. But I did. I felt it in every part of my body, like an electric shock, leaving me breathless and weak. There was no mistaking it. The flirty emojis, the subtle innuendos, the hidden language between the lines. It was all there. I slammed the phone down onto the coffee table, my hands trembling as I tried to keep my composure. How long had this been going on? How could he do this to me? The questions screamed in my mind, but no answers came. All I had was the cold truth staring back at me. I knew what I had to do next, but my body refused to move. I was paralyzed by the rush of emotions flooding over me: anger, disbelief, betrayal. I had to confront him. I had to know everything, even if it meant facing the harsh reality of what I had suspected for so long. My heart pounded in my chest as I heard his footsteps getting closer. I wanted to shout, to scream, to demand answers right then and there. But I didn't. I was too scared of the truth. I needed to prepare myself for what was about to unfold. I needed to be ready. As he opened the door and stepped into the room, I could see the familiar expression on his face, the one he wore every time he came home after a long day at work. He smiled, and for a second, I almost forgot. Almost. But the reality hit me like a cold wave, and I swallowed hard, trying to steady my breath. I didn't say anything at first. I just watched him, my mind racing with thoughts I couldn't put into words. He looked at me, confused by the silence. "Hey, babe," he said, walking toward me. "What's going on?" I didn't respond. I just stared at him, the pain in my chest almost suffocating me. I wanted to shout, to accuse him of everything I knew, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. Not yet. Instead, I stood up slowly, my hands still shaking. He took a step closer, reaching out to touch my arm, but I pulled away. The warmth of his touch felt foreign, like it no longer belonged to me. "What's wrong?" he asked again, his voice softer this time, like he was trying to calm me down. I looked him straight in the eyes. "I know," I said, my voice barely a whisper. He froze. For a moment, he didn't speak. His expression flickered, like he was trying to process what I had just said. But I could see the panic in his eyes. He knew I was talking about the messages. He knew I had found out. And I could feel the shift in the air, the tension building between us like a storm that was about to break. "What are you talking about?" he asked, his voice shaky now. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to hold it together. I had to stay calm. I had to be smart about this. "I know about you and Lisa." His face went pale. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. The silence between us was deafening. "You've been lying to me," I continued, my voice shaking with barely contained rage. "This entire time. You thought I wouldn't find out, but I did." "How long, David? How long has this been going on?" His eyes darted around the room, searching for an escape, but there was none. The truth had been laid bare, and there was no way out. I never meant for it to happen," he stammered. It just happened." I shook my head. "No. Don't you dare try to justify this. You betrayed me. Both of you. my best friend, my husband. I felt the tears welling up, but I refused to let them fall. You think I'm stupid? You think I wouldn't find out? He didn't answer. Instead, he stood there, his head hung low, ashamed, and I knew that nothing would ever be the same again. I turned away from him, my mind racing, my heart breaking. How could I have been so blind? How could I have trusted him? How could I have trusted Lisa? I didn't know how to fix this. I didn't know what to do. But I knew one thing for sure, this was far from over. This was just the beginning. And they would pay for what they did to me. I didn't cry. Not yet. I thought I would, but the shock was too much, too raw. The betrayal wasn't just about my husband's infidelity. It was about my best friend, Lisa, someone who had been with me through everything. Someone I had trusted with my darkest secrets. The woman who knew my hopes, my fears, my everything. I couldn't understand how she could do this to me. How could she look me in the eye all these years, smile at me, and pretend everything was fine while sleeping with my husband? How long had they been hiding this? How long had they both been lying to me? David stood there in silence, his head still hanging low, his shame hanging over him like a dark cloud. I could feel the anger boiling up inside me, but I pushed it down. This was not the time for rage, not yet. I had to know everything. I had to get to the bottom of this. You need to tell me everything, I said, my voice calm, but cold. And I mean everything, David. I want to know when this started, how it started, and why. I want the truth. David's eyes flickered up to mine, his expression one of fear. He didn't want to tell me. He knew I was right. But he also knew that there was no way out now. The truth was out. And the truth would burn. I don't know what to say, he muttered, his voice barely audible. It was a mistake, Sarah. I never meant to hurt you. I never thought it would go this far. I could hear the desperation in his voice, but it didn't matter. His excuses weren't enough anymore. They never would be. How long, David? I pressed. How long have you been sleeping with her? Almost a year, he said, his words barely escaping his lips. The confession hit me like a punch in the gut. A year? How many times had I looked her in the eye, hugged her, trusted her, while she was betraying me behind my back? The room felt like it was closing in on me. My head was spinning. I wanted to scream, to shout, to make him feel the same pain that I was feeling. But I held it in. For now. I turned away from him, my chest tight. I couldn't stand looking at him anymore. I needed space, air. I needed to think. But I wasn't going to let this go. I couldn't. I wouldn't. I reached for my phone, my fingers shaking as I unlocked it. I opened the messages between David and Lisa. The ones I had found earlier. I scrolled through them again, searching for anything that would give me answers. Anything that would explain why they had done this to me. But it was just a string of lies. There were words of affection, flirty comments, and promises of being together. Nothing that made sense, nothing that justified what had happened. And then I saw it. A message from Lisa, sent just a few days ago. It was a simple sentence, but it hit me like a brick. I miss you. Can't wait to be with you again. I felt bile rise in my throat. My best friend. The woman who had been there for me through everything. The one person I had always counted on, and she was betraying me too. She was no better than him. They were both guilty. And that realization hit harder than anything else. I set the phone down and turned back to David. He was still standing there, unsure of what to say. His eyes were full of regret, but it wasn't enough. I had no sympathy left for him. No compassion. He had shattered everything. I need you to leave, I said, my voice firm, without hesitation. I need you to go, David. I can't look at you right now. I don't even want to be near you. He didn't move. He didn't leave. Instead, he stepped closer, as if trying to comfort me. But I wasn't going to be comforted. Not by him. Not by anyone. Sarah, please, he whispered. I'm so sorry. I know I've made a huge mistake. I'll do whatever it takes to fix this. We can work through this. I swear. I shook my head, the words he spoke falling on deaf ears. There's nothing to fix, I said coldly. It's too late for that. He reached out again, but I stepped back. Just go, David. I need to be alone. And finally, after a long, tense silence, he turned and left the room. The door slammed behind him, and I was left standing there, in the ruins of everything I had known. Everything I had built. But I wasn't going to fall apart. I wasn't going to crumble. I was stronger than that. I walked to the window and looked out at the darkening sky. The world felt different now. It felt cold. But it also felt like a new beginning. This wasn't the end. Not by a long shot. This was just the beginning of what I would do next. The days following David's departure were nothing short of a blur. I moved through life like a ghost, numb to everything around me. I went to work, smiled when I had to, and pretended that everything was fine. But it wasn't. It was never going to be again. I hadn't spoken to Lisa since I found out. I had no idea how to confront her, my best friend, the woman who had known me better than anyone else, the one who had been there when I needed someone the most. She had betrayed me in the worst way imaginable. I couldn't just let that slide. I had to do something. The anger that had been bubbling beneath the surface now roared within me, and I knew that I wasn't going to sit around and wallow in my grief. I wasn't going to beg for answers or apologies. No, this was about me taking control. This was about making them feel the pain that I had been drowning in since that moment I found the messages. I wasn't going to let them get away with it. I wasn't going to let them think that I was just going to forgive and forget. They had crossed a line, and now I was going to make them pay. It started with Lisa. I called her. I didn't want to, but I had to. I needed to hear her voice. I needed to know if she was going to try to lie her way out of this, or if she would finally admit what she had done. Hello. Her voice was soft, almost too soft, like she was trying to hide her guilt. I didn't waste time. Lisa, I said, my voice calm but ice cold. We need to talk. There was a pause on the other end of the line. I could almost hear her heart racing. She knew. She knew exactly why I was calling. Sarah, she started, her voice faltering, but I cut her off. Don't even start with apologies. You've already betrayed me once. You think I'm going to let you lie your way out of this? Sarah, please. I didn't mean for it to happen. It was a mistake, A mistake. I snapped, my blood boiling. You didn't slip up into bed with my husband, Lisa. This wasn't an accident. This was a choice. A deliberate choice. You knew what you were doing. I could hear her breathing heavily on the other side of the line. She was silent, and I knew she was trying to come up with something that would make this all better, something that would make her look like the victim. But I wasn't going to let her play that card. Not anymore. You have no idea what you've done to me, I continued, my voice hard. You've shattered everything. My trust, my marriage, my friendship. And I'm not going to let you walk away from this like nothing happened. Another pause. I could feel her guilt pouring through the phone, thick and suffocating. She finally spoke, her voice almost a whisper. What do you want from me, Sarah? I smiled darkly, a plan already beginning to form in my mind. What do I want? I want you to understand the consequences of what you've done. I want you to feel the weight of your actions. You and David thought you could destroy me, but I'm not the one who's going to pay. You both are. She didn't answer immediately. I knew she was trying to figure out what I meant, but I wasn't going to explain myself. I didn't need to. She would see soon enough. I'll be seeing you soon, Lisa, I said before hanging up. I didn't give her a chance to respond. There was nothing left to say. The ball was in my court now. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. My mind was racing with thoughts of how I would make them both suffer for what they had done to me. I could feel the plan forming, piece by piece, in the back of my mind. And the more I thought about it, the more I knew I was right. I wasn't going to get revenge in some small, petty way. No, this was going to be calculated. It was going to be perfect. And it was going to break them both. I spent the next few days gathering information, contacting people, and getting things in motion. I knew I had to keep it quiet. If they found out what I was planning before it was too late, everything would fall apart. So I kept everything under wraps. I told no one. Not even my closest friends. My first move was to confront David. I knew he wouldn't expect it. He probably thought I'd been sitting around moping, waiting for him to come back and apologize. But I wasn't that woman. I wasn't the woman who would just let him walk back into my life. I met him at a coffee shop on a Wednesday afternoon. He looked nervous when he saw me, but I didn't care. He wasn't in control anymore. "Sit down," I told him, my voice firm, as I gestured to the chair across from me. He sat, his eyes avoiding mine. I knew he was guilty, and he knew I knew. "I've thought a lot about this," I began, my eyes locked on his. "And I've decided that I'm not going to divorce you. Not yet. I want something else from you. I want you to suffer. I want you to feel the same way I did when I found out about you and Lisa. The same shock, the same betrayal. You will regret ever crossing me." His face paled, and he looked like he was about to speak, but I held up a hand, silencing him. "I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking for your sympathy. I'm asking for your cooperation. Because if you don't help me, things are going to get a lot worse for you." He looked at me, and for the first time since all this began, I saw fear in his eyes. It wasn't the same confidence he used to have. It wasn't the same man who used to control everything. No, now he was just a man who was going to pay for his mistakes. The following days were a blur of calculated moves and careful steps. I kept myself in control, never letting on to David or Lisa what I had in mind. I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of knowing how deeply I was hurting. No, they would soon realize they had underestimated me. David, for all his bluster, wasn't as clever as he thought. I could see it in his eyes, the way his gaze shifted when I spoke. He was scared. I had his number now. The silence between us had shifted, and with every passing day, the distance grew wider. He had no idea what I was capable of. Lisa, on the other hand, was still in denial. She thought I'd just forgive her. That I'd forget what she had done, just as she had forgotten all the years of friendship we shared. I hadn't called her since that day, but I knew she was trying to reach out. She wanted me to forgive her. She wanted to explain herself. But I wasn't going to listen. Not yet. I knew that the real damage would come once I had both of them right where I wanted them. But I needed more. More information. More leverage. That's when I turned to their shared history. The things they thought were hidden. The things they thought they could keep buried. I'd been following them both for weeks, but now I needed to dig deeper. It was time to infiltrate their world, to become a part of it without them knowing it. And that meant getting close to Lisa again. I reached out to her. I needed to get to the heart of what was really going on between her and David. There was something more there, something deeper. I wasn't sure what, but I knew I had to find out. I called Lisa, but this time, I wasn't going to be the one to apologize. This time, I wasn't going to be the one to beg for answers. She picked up on the second ring. "Sarah," she said, sounding surprised but not guilty, as if she didn't expect me to call. "It's been a while. I've been trying to reach you." "I know," I replied, keeping my voice calm. "I've been busy. But I think it's time we talk." Her breath caught slightly, and I could tell she was on edge. "I don't know what you want from me, Sarah. I've tried to apologize, and you've made it clear you don't want to hear it." I didn't let her finish. "I'm not calling to hear your apology, Lisa. I want answers. The truth. The truth about you and David. What were you two really doing behind my back?" There was silence on the other end. I could hear her breathing, her hesitation. Finally, she spoke, her voice slow. "You don't understand, Sarah. It wasn't just about that. It was complicated. It started as a mistake, but then, it became more." "More?" I repeated, narrowing my eyes. "You mean it was planned? You knew what you were doing the whole time?" "No, that's not what I meant." But she trailed off, unsure of how to proceed. "I didn't want to hurt you. I never wanted to hurt you." I let the silence hang between us, forcing her to feel the weight of her words. I wasn't going to let her off that easily. "But you did, didn't you? You hurt me. You hurt us both. And I'm not just going to let this slide." "Please, Sarah," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I never meant for it to get this far. It was a moment of weakness. But David, he's a part of my life now. I can't undo what's been done." "Then you'll never understand what I'm about to do," I said, my voice sharp with cold resolve. "You don't get to play the victim. You made your choice, and now you're going to live with it." There was no response. Lisa had nothing left to say. She was realizing the truth. She was no longer in control. She had been a pawn in this game, just like David, and she would soon feel the consequences of her actions. The next day, I met David again. I had gathered enough information, and now I was ready to put my plan into motion. I couldn't afford to waste any more time. This wasn't just about revenge, it was about making them understand the cost of their betrayal. And that cost would be high. When I walked into the coffee shop, I saw him immediately. He looked up, his face tense as he saw me approach. But he didn't say anything. He knew this meeting wasn't going to be like the others. This wasn't going to be about apologies or empty promises. I sat down across from him, my expression cold. I know everything, David. I know about you and Lisa. I know everything you've done behind my back. And now, it's time for you to pay the price. He didn't speak at first, just stared at me, trying to read my face. But I wasn't giving anything away. I wasn't going to let him see how badly he'd hurt me. You're not going to get away with this, I continued. I've made sure of it. Your life is about to change, David. And you'll never be able to go back to the way things were. His eyes flickered with fear. Sarah, please, don't do this. We can work this out. We can fix things. But there was no fixing this. Not anymore. You had your chance to fix things, I said. Now you'll learn the consequences of your actions. The fear in his eyes deepened, and I could see him mentally scrambling for a way to get out of this. But it was too late. He was trapped in his own lies, and I had the power now. I stood up, my mind already turning to the next move. I'm going to make sure Lisa knows exactly what you've done, David. And when she sees what I've got planned for her, she'll understand that there's no way out of this. The plan was simple, yet elegant. I had all the pieces in place. The fear in David's eyes confirmed it. He knew I wasn't playing games anymore. This wasn't just about revenge. This was about reclaiming my power. Every move I made from here on out would bring me closer to the satisfaction I craved. The sweet taste of victory. The price they would pay for their betrayal. David left the coffee shop without another word. He didn't fight, didn't beg. I had broken him. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for him. But then I reminded myself, he had made his choices, just like Lisa had. And now, they would both face the consequences. The first step in my plan was to bring Lisa into the fold. I had to see her face to face. I wasn't going to leave anything to chance. I wasn't going to give her any room to manipulate the situation. She needed to know that I was no longer the victim. I was the one in control. I called her the next day, and this time, I didn't leave room for hesitation. Lisa, I said, my voice firm, controlled. We need to talk. I'm giving you one last chance to make things right. But don't think for a second that I'll let you off the hook. If you want to save yourself, you better be honest with me. Now. I could hear her breathing on the other end, her panic palpable. She had no idea what was coming. I was about to bring everything she had tried to hide into the light, and I wasn't going to give her the luxury of escaping her mistakes. Where do you want to meet? She asked after a long pause, her voice shaky. Tomorrow. 3 p.m. Same place as before, I replied. I could hear her sigh in relief, as though she thought this was going to be some kind of cathartic meeting. But she was wrong. This wasn't going to be about healing, it was going to be about destruction. The day of our meeting, I arrived early. I needed to set the stage, make sure everything was perfect. I watched as Lisa pulled up outside the cafe. She stepped out of her car, her nervous energy practically vibrating in the air. I knew she thought this was going to be some kind of reconciliation. She had no idea what she was walking into. As she walked into the cafe, I could see her scanning the room for me. When our eyes met, I gave her a smile, a cold, calculating smile. She sat down across from me, her hands fidgeting nervously in her lap. Lisa, I began, keeping my voice calm. You've been hiding something from me. Something important. And I'm done being the fool. She shifted uncomfortably in her seat. I don't know what you mean, Sarah. I'm sorry for what happened between me and David, but you have to understand. No, I cut her off sharply. You don't get to make excuses anymore. You think that I don't know what's been going on between you two? You think I don't know about the lies you've both been feeding me? You've both been living in a fantasy world, pretending that your actions don't have consequences. Well, the consequences are here. She opened her mouth to speak, but I raised my hand, silencing her. You don't get to speak yet, I said coldly. You need to hear this first. I have something that'll change everything for you. I reached into my bag and pulled out a small envelope. Lisa's eyes widened, and I could see the panic beginning to set in. She didn't know what was coming. But I did. And I was going to make sure she knew the depth of her betrayal. This, I said, placing the envelope on the table between us, is everything. Everything you thought you could hide. I have every text, every email, every conversation between you and David. I have it all, Lisa. And you can't run from this anymore. Her face drained of color. Sarah, please. You don't understand. I never wanted to hurt you. You're right about one thing, I interrupted. You never wanted to hurt me. But you did anyway. And now, I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly what you've done. I slid the envelope across the table toward her, and she hesitated before picking it up. I watched her hands tremble as she opened it and pulled out the contents. As she scanned the papers inside, I could see her face going from disbelief to fear. She knew. She knew exactly what I had. I'd gotten to her. I'd broken her. And now, it was time to finish what I started. Do you think David is going to protect you now, Lisa? I asked quietly, leaning forward. He won't. He's already betrayed you. You're both in this together, and you're going down together. Tears welled in her eyes, and she opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. There was nothing left for her to say. You and David thought you could ruin my life, I continued, my voice growing cold. But now, I'm the one who controls everything. I've been in the shadows long enough, Lisa. You and David both thought you could use me, manipulate me. But now, I'm the one who's playing the game. She sat there, her eyes wide with shock, as she realized the depth of my plan. Her world was unraveling right in front of her, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. I stood up, leaving her there, broken and helpless. I had delivered my message, and now I would watch as it all fell apart for them. They thought they could destroy me, but I had turned the tables. I had taken control. Underscore 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 underscore. The weight of what I had done settled over me like a heavy blanket. But unlike the crushing pain I had felt in the beginning, this weight felt different. It felt like power. Like control. Finally, I was in charge of my own fate, and nothing was going to stop me now. I left the cafe that day with a strange sense of calm. I wasn't gloating. I wasn't celebrating. I was just done. Done with being the victim. Done with feeling sorry for myself. Now, I was going to watch David and Lisa's lives fall apart, piece by piece. David's phone call came later that night, just as I was about to go to bed. I didn't need to look at the caller ID to know it was him. I'd been expecting it. Sarah, please, his voice crackled through the receiver. We need to talk. This isn't what you think. You've got it all wrong. I laughed softly, a dark sound that didn't even sound like me. No, David. I don't think you understand. You're the one who got it wrong. You and Lisa both. Please, I swear, I never meant to hurt you, he begged. I made a mistake. I'm so sorry. I wasn't interested in his apologies. I wasn't interested in his words anymore. I'm done with your apologies, David, I said, my voice ice cold. I've heard enough from you. There was silence on the other end of the line, and I could almost feel the weight of his guilt hanging in the air. But I wasn't about to let him off that easily. Not after everything he had done. I'll make sure everyone knows the truth, David, I continued, the words sharp, final. I'll make sure you lose everything. Your career, your friends, your reputation. Everything. You'll never escape what you've done. Please, he whispered, desperation creeping into his voice. You don't have to do this. We can fix this. Just give me a chance. But there was no chance for him. Not anymore. His voice was nothing more than background noise as I tuned him out. I had a bigger plan now, one that would destroy them both. The following days were a whirlwind. I didn't waste any time. I knew exactly what I had to do. I had to ensure that the truth about David and Lisa's affair came out, and I had to do it in the most public, devastating way possible. I reached out to a few of David's colleagues, the ones I knew he had been closest to. I wasn't subtle. I didn't hold back. I shared the details, the texts, the messages, everything. I knew that if I made the truth public, if I let enough people see what they had done, David would have no choice but to face the consequences. The phone calls and emails came flooding in. Some of his colleagues tried to brush it off, saying it was a misunderstanding. Others were more sympathetic, but they didn't matter. The damage was done. Word spread like wildfire. Within days, everyone at David's office knew. His once spotless reputation was shattered. And then, it was time to bring Lisa into the spotlight. I had been biding my time, watching her every move, knowing that eventually, she would have to face the consequences of her betrayal. I knew she would try to cover her tracks, try to fix things, but it was too late. The storm was already here, and I was going to make sure she felt every bit of it. I arranged for a meeting with Lisa at the same cafe where we had met earlier. She was terrified. I could hear it in her voice when she confirmed the time, her words laced with uncertainty. But she was coming, and I was ready. When she walked in, her face was pale, her eyes avoiding mine. She had no idea how deep the hole I'd dug for her really was. She sat down slowly, her hands trembling as she placed them on the table in front of her. "I know what you've been doing, Lisa," I said, cutting straight to the point. "I know everything. And I'm not going to let you walk away from this without facing the consequences." Her eyes widened in panic. "Sarah, please, you don't understand. I never meant for it to get this far. I was weak. It just—" "Stop," I interrupted, my voice steady. "I've heard enough excuses. You thought you could hide behind your friendship with me, but the truth is out. Everyone knows now." I slid a stack of papers across the table toward her. "This is just the beginning. You think you can crawl back into your life and pretend nothing happened? Think again." She opened the papers, her face falling as she scanned the contents. The proof of her betrayal. The pictures, the messages, the emails, everything that I had gathered over the past few weeks. She knew it was over. "Why, Lisa?" I asked, my voice almost a whisper. "Why did you do it? What made you think I wouldn't find out?" She shook her head, her eyes filled with shame and fear. "I don't know, Sarah. I don't know what happened. I never meant to hurt you. But it was too late. The damage had been done. And now she would have to live with the consequences of her actions." As I watched her struggle, a cold satisfaction spread through me. I had won. I had taken back control of my life. But it wasn't over yet. There was still one more piece of the puzzle to put in place. David thought he could beg his way out of this. Lisa thought she could hide behind her excuses. But they were both wrong. The truth had been revealed, and now they would face the fallout. I wasn't going to let them off easy. No, this was my moment. And I was going to make sure it was one they would never forget. It wasn't enough to watch them crumble from the sidelines. The real satisfaction came from seeing their lives unravel before their eyes, bit by bit. What I had orchestrated wasn't just about the affair. It was about power, control, and taking back everything they had stolen from me. But the final act of my revenge was yet to come. The phone call with Lisa had done its job. She was shattered, cornered, and desperate. I could hear the panic in her voice as she begged for a way out. She had no idea how deep I had dug. I wasn't just going to ruin her. I was going to ensure that her every move, every decision, would be watched. She wouldn't get the chance to escape unscathed. But it wasn't just her. David still hadn't faced the full brunt of his actions. He thought the public humiliation at work was enough, but I knew there was one last thing that would leave him no choice, but to truly feel the consequences of betraying me. And that's when I made the call. It was a Tuesday when I called David. He had already been trying to salvage his reputation, scrambling to fix the damage, but I knew that nothing would fix it now. Not for him. Not for Lisa. Not for either of them. I didn't say hello. I didn't greet him with niceties. I went straight to the point. "You know what's coming, right?" I asked, my voice laced with cold satisfaction. "What? What do you mean?" David's voice trembled through the line, and I could hear the strain in his breath. He was already defeated. He just didn't know it yet. "I'm not going to stop, David. Not until you've lost everything. You've lost your job, your reputation, but there's more. You and Lisa, you're going to be marked forever. People will never forget what you've done. You'll never be able to show your face in public again without the weight of this on you. There was a long pause. For the first time since I had learned the truth, I heard the sound of him breaking. Not physically, but mentally. He was done. "I'll do anything," he said, almost pleading now. "Please, Sarah. I'll fix it. Just tell me what I need to do." I smiled darkly. "You already had your chance. You chose this. And now you're going to live with it." And with that, I hung up. The fallout was swift and brutal. It didn't take long for the news of David and Lisa's affair to reach the small town we lived in. Rumors spread like wildfire, and the community, once supportive of them, turned their backs. David lost his job at the firm, and even his family started to distance themselves. The same people who had once called him a friend now whispered behind his back. But the real victory came when Lisa's life began to crumble too. The truth about her affair with David was spread across social media like wildfire, and the public backlash was swift. Her friends abandoned her, and the small circle of people who once trusted her turned their backs. Her reputation, the one she had carefully built over the years, was shattered beyond repair. Lisa thought she could hide behind her excuses, but the truth had a way of catching up with everyone. She couldn't hide anymore. Not from me. Not from the people she had betrayed. But I wasn't done yet. Not with them, not with myself. I had taken back my life, but now it was time to make sure that their destruction wasn't just some fleeting moment. It had to be permanent. I knew exactly how to do it. I knew the one thing that would truly devastate them, the thing that would haunt them for the rest of their lives. And so I did it. I leaked the full story to the press. I made sure the affair, the lies, the betrayal, everything was out in the open for the world to see. It wasn't just about their professional lives, this was about their personal lives. The public exposure of everything they had done was the final nail in the coffin. They were humiliated in front of everyone. David and Lisa would never be able to escape the consequences of their actions. They would carry the weight of their betrayal for the rest of their lives. They would always be the couple that destroyed their friendship, their marriage, and their reputation. They would never be able to rebuild what they had lost. As the weeks went by, I watched them sink further into their misery. David moved out of town, his name tarnished forever. Lisa tried to salvage what little was left of her life, but nothing worked. No amount of apologies, no amount of begging could undo what had been done. I didn't feel satisfaction. I didn't feel joy. What I felt was something deeper, something more powerful. It was closure. I had taken control. I had turned the tables on them. They had tried to destroy me, but in the end, I was the one standing strong. I was the one who had taken back everything. The final piece of my revenge was to live my life without them. They would never be a part of it again. I had closed that door forever. I moved on, focusing on myself. I started a new chapter. My life was no longer defined by their betrayal. My future was mine to control. And as I walked forward, I couldn't help but smile. Because, in the end, I had one. It's strange how everything falls into place once you stop trying to force it. For weeks, months even, I had been consumed by anger, by betrayal, by the need to make them pay. But now, with the storm over, I felt empty. The destruction I had so carefully planned, the revenge I had so thoroughly executed, it was all over. And yet, something inside me was still restless. David and Lisa were gone from my life, both of them scattered to the wind like fallen leaves. The town whispered about them, their names forever tied to scandal. They were no longer the people they once were. The life they had built, their friends, their careers, all of it lay in ruins. And yet, I found no satisfaction in their downfall anymore. The only thing left for me was to walk away. To leave the past where it belonged in the past. But even after everything, there was still a part of me that couldn't quite let go. The bitterness remained, buried deep inside me. I had taken my revenge, but the pain still lingered. I spent the next few weeks in quiet reflection. I started focusing on the things that truly mattered, my work, my health, my friends who had stuck by me through the hardest moments. Life began to feel normal again. I found a routine that suited me. I didn't need to check on David's social media to see how he was doing. I didn't need to follow Lisa's every move. They were no longer part of my life, and I was starting to accept that. But the biggest change came when I realized something important. I had been holding on to the past for far too long. My obsession with revenge, my need for closure, it had all kept me chained to them, to the betrayal. Once I let go of that need, I felt free. Free from the anger. Free from the need to keep punishing them. And in that freedom, I found a kind of peace. A few months passed, and one day I ran into an old friend from work. We caught up, talked about life, and by the end of the conversation, I was reminded of something I had almost forgotten. I was still me. I was still capable of loving, of living, of being happy. I realized that I didn't need revenge to feel whole again. I didn't need to see David and Lisa suffer anymore. They had already paid the price for their betrayal. And now it was my turn to move forward. I started going out more, meeting new people, making new friends. It felt strange at first, but it was liberating. I even went on a few dates, although none of them really worked out. It didn't matter. What mattered was that I was living for myself now. I wasn't living for revenge anymore. And as time went on, I realized that I had won in a way that I hadn't fully understood at the time. The power to move on, to let go, was the ultimate form of victory. I didn't need to see David or Lisa fall any further. They were already broken, and I didn't need their destruction to validate my strength. The revenge was never about them. It was about me. I took a deep breath and closed my eyes, letting the weight of the past fall away. I had become the person I was meant to be, and in that quiet moment, I felt a rare peace. Not the kind you get when you win a battle, but the kind you get when you stop fighting. The final chapter of my story was written, and I was ready for the next one.